The first scream came before anyone even knew something had gone wrong. It tore through the Whitmore estate like glass shattering, sharp, sudden, and then terrifyingly silent. Nathaniel Whitmore was on the third floor of his own home, finishing a call with his board of directors, when the sound hit him. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He dropped the phone mid-sentence and ran. By the time he reached the top of the grand staircase, the sight below him stopped him cold. His mother, Margaret Whitmore, 64 years old, sharp-tongued, iron-willed, and the single most important person in his life, was crumpled at the bottom of the stairs. Her hand was pressed against the marble floor. Her walking cane lay 3 steps above her, as if it had been knocked away before she fell. And standing at the top of the stairs, one hand pressed over her mouth in apparent horror, was Vivian Cole, his fiancée, 29 years old, the woman he had planned to marry in 6 weeks. She fell, Vivian whispered, her voice trembling. Nathaniel, I was right behind her. She lost her footing. I couldn't. Nathaniel was already moving, taking the stairs 2 at a time, kneeling beside his mother. Margaret was conscious. That was the first mercy. But she was in pain, real pain, and her eyes when they found his face were confused. I didn't fall, she said. Just those 3 words. Quiet. Certain. And then her eyes closed. The paramedics arrived in 11 minutes. The diagnosis came 3 hours later at the hospital. A fractured, 2 bruised ribs, and a hairline fracture at the base of her left hip. She would recover fully. She was lucky. But Margaret Whitmore did not believe in luck. And neither, after that night, did Nathaniel. Back at the estate, after the ambulance left, Vivian sat in the main sitting room with a glass of water she hadn't touched. The household staff had retreated to their quarters. The house was quiet in the way that houses get quiet after something terrible. Except for one small sound. From behind the half-open door of the adjoining laundry room came the soft, rhythmic sound of a child humming. Rosa Delgado, 26 years old, the estate's live-in housekeeper, had been working at the Whitmore house for 3 years. She was quiet, efficient, and almost invisible in the way good household staff are trained to be. She never spoke unless spoken to, never offered opinions, never lingered. But her daughter Lily was 3 years old. And Lily was everything Rosa was not. Loud, observant, curious, and absolutely incapable of pretending she hadn't seen something. Lily had been sitting in the corner of the upstairs hallway, playing with her wooden block set when it happened. She had seen everything. Nathaniel did not sleep that night. He sat beside his mother's hospital bed until 4 in the morning, watching the rise and fall of her breathing, replaying the moment he had arrived at the top of those stairs. The image refused to leave him. Vivian's hand over her mouth. Her trembling voice. Her tears, which had come quickly and dried just as quickly. He loved Vivian. Or he had believed he did. 38 years old. And he had never let anyone close enough to matter until her. She had been patient with his distance, warm in ways he hadn't known he needed. And he had built a future around her in his mind without quite realizing he was doing it. But his mother had said, I didn't fall. And Margaret Whitmore did not say things she didn't mean. When morning came, he returned to the estate. Vivian was already awake, dressed perfectly, seated at the kitchen island with coffee. She looked up when he entered, and her expression shifted immediately into concern. How is she? Is she going to be okay? Nathaniel, I've been sick with worry all night. She's stable, he said. He sat down across from her. She said she didn't fall. Vivian's expression didn't change exactly. But something behind her eyes did. A small, almost undetectable recalibration. She's 64, Vivian said gently. And she hit her head. She probably doesn't remember clearly. Nathaniel, I was standing right there. I watched it happen. Her cane slipped on the edge of the step and she went forward. I tried to grab her but I wasn't fast enough. It was a perfect answer. reasonable, compassionate, full of the kind of careful detail that made it feel true. He nodded slowly. I'm sure you're right. But he wasn't sure. And Vivian, who was very good at reading people, knew that. By that afternoon, the story had taken shape. At least the version that Vivian began telling, quietly, strategically, to anyone who asked. Margaret was elderly. Margaret had always been slightly unsteady on those stairs. Margaret had refused to let Nathaniel install a lift or grip rails, out of stubbornness. It was a tragedy, but not a mystery. These things happened. The household staff nodded and said nothing. That was their job. Rosa Delgado also said nothing. She prepared meals, laundered linens, and kept Lily close. But that evening, while Rosa was folding towels in the laundry room, Lily tugged on her sleeve. "Mama," Lily said. She used the tone she used when something was serious, the one that was too solemn for a 3-year-old's face. The pretty lady pushed Grandma. Rosa went very still. "Lily." Her voice was careful. "What did you say?" "The pretty lady." Lily pointed toward the main hall, in the general direction of wherever Vivian happened to be. She pushed Grandma's stick with her foot. And then Grandma fell down the stairs. Rosa put down the towels. She sat on the floor right there in the laundry room, and she pulled her daughter into her lap and looked at her face. Her completely serious, completely unafraid, completely certain face, and felt her stomach drop. "Did anyone else see?" Rosa asked quietly. Lily thought about it. Then she shook her head. Rosa held her daughter